exclusivism being that only one religion is valid, inclusivism saying there are elements of truth in some other religion apart from your own, and pluralism recognizing the validity of many religions. We considered that, and the situation in the Nigerian state is comfortably placed under inclusivism. Some elements of truth in the religion of the other person. Then the paper took a look at religion and politics, the interaction between religion and politics spanning many centuries, and the varieties of this type of relationship between religion and politics. For example, you have the extreme, where the state is run 100% on religious prescriptions. You have the midway position, where sometimes religious prescriptions take precedence. And you have the many common states, where there is a tension between the state authority and religious prescriptions. We recognize the constitutional provisions in various states on issues of religion and how these play out, but we also mentioned the fact that implementation has been a constant challenge, even when there are prescriptions on religious issues in the Constitution. It has not been easy implementing them at various levels. Specifically now, the paper took a look at religion and politics in Nigeria. Nigeria is a multi-religious state with a historical background in colonialism, and all of these influence the politics in the state. There is a constitution. In fact, a section of the Constitution, Section 38, subsection 1 to 3, specifically guarantees freedom of religion. However, we recognize that some elections have taken place in Nigeria, about 9 of them, 1964, 1979, 1983, 1993, 1999, 2003, 2007, 2011, and 2015. We recognize that the issue of religion has remained crucial to political situations and elections in Nigeria. However, as crucial as religion has been, it had not jeopardized the possibility of religions working together for good. For example, the norm in politics in Nigeria is to have a Muslim-Christian ticket. In other words, if the president is a Christian, the vice must be a Muslim, and vice versa. But we have had exceptional cases where we had a Muslim-Muslim ticket and it worked out. The case of Abiola and King Gibe, 1993, was a Muslim-Muslim ticket, and it was a very good election, although the election was eventually annulled by President Ibrahim Babangida. So we recognize that religion has been a crucial factor in issues of elections. Now, specifically on the 2015 general election, which held in April, before the election, immediately before the election, the atmosphere in the country was tense. There were security challenges, and in some quarters, the worst was assumed to be possible to happen. We had instances, many instances, where people had gone to the market to stock up their homes with food items because they envisaged that the aftermath of the election was going to be catastrophic. So the general atmosphere we describe as tense. It was tense. However, customarily, there were also sessions of prayers by all, Muslim, Christians, everybody was praying, and we could see evidences of this. Now, considering issues during the 2015 elections, we looked at two standpoints, from the point of the elected and from the point of those seeking to be elected into office. Specifically for those seeking election, we looked at the presidential candidates of the two prominent parties, the PDP and the APC. Two prominent presidential candidates were, for the APC, retired General Muhammadu Buhari, who eventually became the president-elect. And for the PDP, there was President Goodluck Jonathan, who is now the incumbent. As far as religious issues were concerned, these two men actually were dynamic. Dynamic in the sense that they transversed boundaries. General Buhari, who is a Muslim, and who we will see later was even accused of being a fundamentalist, had meetings with clergy groups in Christendom. He had meetings with them, he fellowshipped with them. And the incumbent, President Goodluck Jonathan, had meetings with all religious groups, including traditional rulers, just to solicit for their support and to show them. They attended worship sessions. It became the in thing, the worship sessions having these presidential candidates in attendance. The popular one is the Redeemed Christian Church Holy Ghost Night, every second Friday of the month along the expressway in Ibadan. President Jonathan was there. The largest Christian congregation in Nigeria is by Winners Chapel, Living Faith Ministries at Ota, Ogun State. President Jonathan was there to see them. There is another very large followership ministry known as the Lord's Chosen Ministry. President Jonathan was there. He was also with traditional rulers in the southwest, the Yorubas, and at the Lamido's palace in the north. So there was this conscientious effort to hold on to the religious symbol, the use of the religious language, just to get people convinced to vote for their candidature. Now, like I mentioned, one of the cardinal issues that needed to be addressed, especially by General Buhari, was the accusation that he had an agenda to Islamize Nigeria. That if he was voted in, he was going to implement the Sharia. Now, you will recall that in the history of Nigeria, there has been an on and off debate about this issue of Sharia. And we have some northern states already practicing Sharia to some level. So the accusation was General Muhammadu Buhari was accused of being a fundamentalist, and that if you voted for him, you were voting for the Islamization of Nigeria. Specifically on this issue, General Buhari made clear statements. We have it somewhere in our paper, and I will read it. He said, I, Muhammadu Buhari, as an individual and as the president of this great country by the grace of God, given the opportunity to serve, have no personal religious agenda, and I will not entertain, consider, or promote the religious agenda of anyone. I will not condone any initiative that seeks to promote one religion over the other. Neither I nor my party or any member of my team has any desire or plan to Islamize or Christianize Nigeria or support anyone with such intention, unquote. So he came out and to state clearly that he was not going to implement the Sharia. He gave many examples of his associates that he had worked with, his best friends who were Christians, and requested for Oshibajo, who is now the vice president. Oshibajo, by the way, is a clergyman in the Redeemed Christian Church of God, well-known Christian group in Nigeria. So we had this interplay of the religious elements from the presidential candidates before the election. Now from the position of the electorate, the first thing we want to put on record are the predictions. We have series of predictions, very interesting predictions. We have some examples in the Bible, in the paper. Some who said the incumbent, President Jonathan, was going to win, and there is nobody who can stop him. That is what God said. And those, of course, on the other side, who predicted that God told them that President Buhari will win the election. And then we had the third group who were supporters of President Jonathan in 2011 and now say no, he's not going to win no more, especially the case of Reverend Father Abubakar. The press The press played a very central role in this issue, exposing all the angles of the argument, so people were able to follow. Another interesting thing we noted was that this election, 2015 in Nigeria, religious groups actually saw and implemented the need for political education for their followers. They organized workshops, they organized seminars, they invited speakers, and targeted the youth population to give them education and tell them what the demands of good governance was. That the emphasis was not on the religious affiliation of the candidate. The emphasis on good governance. Who can deliver good governance? So there was voting across religious lines eventually. Now, the issue of pluralism and religious freedom, which is what interests us in this paper, was reinforced by these interplay of events in this 2015 election. That is, for the Nigerian people, it comes to fore that the important thing is good governance. It's not the Muslim ticket, it's not the Christian ticket. In our history, we had the reign of Gowon for 9 years, and all his service chiefs were Christian, and Gowon was a Christian. But because of good governance, there was no problem. And like I mentioned earlier on, there was the Abiola Kingibe ticket, Muslim ticket, and there was no problem because there was good governance. Another example is the Muritala regime, very short, but up till now, Nigerians are talking about it because he delivered good governance. So some Muslims voted for President Jonathan, who is a Christian. Many Christians voted for President Buhari, who became the president-elect. So it seems across board, there was voting across board. We want to also place it on record that it is indisputable that the sensitivity of religion makes religious issues indispensable when you talk about anything politics in Nigeria. However, we are aware of the issue of the Boko Haram. When we talk about religious pluralism, freedom of religion, and then we still see elements of fundamentalism. How do we reconcile this? Our reaction to this issue is that it is obvious from precedents and happenings around us that Boko Haram is not a religious issue. We have tales to tell from the Muslim side and from the Christian side of the devastating effect of the activities of the Boko Haram. So the Boko Haram issue is to be treated within the confines of terrorism, a global problem. So we cannot now use the Boko Haram as a paradigm to judge the religious pluralism. For the average Nigerian, good governance is the preference, irrespective of the religious affiliation of the people contesting for offices. Thank you.
Thank you very much.